Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Miss Liza Lovett, so stay tuned.
It's a miracle, baby. Shot chill. Miracle Sims. Let's go. Yeah. It's a miracle, baby. Shot chill. Miracle Sims.
But I'm not the type of girl that goes.
Yeah. It's a miracle, baby. Shot
Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I am here with Miss Liza Lovett. How are you doing?
Excuse me. I did not want to do that. I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, you want me to start it off? We can do that.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was like, wow, that came on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll do editors. I hope you paid attention. I'll get it re-going. Okay.
That was surprising.
Yeah, so you can be comfortable. You know what I'm saying? I want you to be like, oh my God.
Sorry.
Well, let me take an extra step. Look, the enemy trying to silence us today. Okay, here we go. All right. Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I'm here with Miss Liza Lovett. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to have you here. Welcome to the GSL Talk Show.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm excited too. I'm excited as well. Tell us where you're from and then a little bit about yourself.
So I am from Texas, from the North Dallas area, which is actually closer to Oklahoma than Dallas. It's such a large space. So I grew up here. I went to college in a teeny tiny town, Central Texas. That's where a big part of my story takes place. And moved back to my hometown. I'm married to a pilot and spend my time speaking, writing, and podcasting. So it's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. Cool. I only have a little bit of experience with Texas. I went over to Salina and did a show once. So I don't know. Is that close?
Yes, actually, it's 20-ish minutes away. Yeah.
Look, that was some years ago, but shout out to Salina, Texas, man. It was an amazing community there and whatnot, and they brought me in to do one of my mystery shows. Yeah, so it was really cool experience and whatnot. Well, I mean, obviously you love it there. You grew up there and you stayed and everything of that nature. And so, tell us all about you, your childhood and things of that nature, whatever you would like to share.
So I grew up in a Christian home, in a Baptist home, which is really conservative. And I ended up going to a Baptist college. However, I guess things kind of started back at my hometown church. I started dating a guy who was very involved, very much loved in our church. So when we started dating, nobody was really against it. They just thought, oh my gosh, we love her, we love him, like so good. And unfortunately, he turned out to be more of a Jekyll and Hyde, and it turned into a really abusive relationship. I was assaulted sexually multiple times and just didn't know how to ask for help because my family was super involved in our church. I was very well known. So was he. So it was difficult to go, if I tell somebody, who is going to believe this guy is this way? And I grew up in purity culture, which I've learned people either know what that is or they don't. And the basic message of purity culture was don't have sex before marriage because the Bible says so. However, unfortunately, it created a little bit more of an extreme culture where the woman was responsible for the man sexually. And there was a very high value on your virginity, but my virginity was taken. So when that was gone, I was like, I have nothing of value. I have nothing to protect. I didn't do a good job holding that line. So I stayed in this relationship for about 2.5 years. He followed me to college, and I came across a coffee shop and started hanging around those people. They were really nice, really inviting. And then eventually a few people realized I was in a bad relationship. So they offered help, which for me, I'm like, what an answer to prayer. Like, thank God. And some people really did help me get out of that relationship. And so then the invitation was, we can help you. And this ministry, it's a college ministry. It was charismatic, which was a new world for me.
Hmm.
And it was, hey, we can do deliverance, which is casting out of demons, to help you.
Hmm.
And I got really involved. And of course I did, because I'm like, yes, I need help, And unfortunately, that turned out to be a cult. And I can say that because the the law actually does identify them as a cult. We have that confirmed by law as of a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And I stayed for 6 years. Finally, I realized, after being there for 6 years, I thought, hold on, I'm not better. Neither is so-and-so or so-and-so. And so what's going on? And I feel like I'm being treated the same way that my abuser did.
Mm.
And so finally in 2014, I woke up and I left. So that's like, in a nutshell, all the things.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, again, thank you for your transparency and, being willing to share this with us. I mean, I'm sure, and well, obviously with the world anyway, because I'm sure the things you're speaking about and things of that nature. And, I know that the enemy tries to silence us and, take our testimonies or make us ashamed and, all those different type of things. So thank you for pushing through and not allowing that to keep you down. Right. So, wow, yes, a lot of interesting things there, right? I mean, if we go back to your childhood and everything, I mean, this goes to show, I think, for some reason, I think I say this all the time, but here it is again, y'all. Sorry, GSL people. But for some reason, I think that there's this narrative, like when you come to Christ and like when you live in Christ and all these different type of things, that everything is peaches and cream. And I feel like the Bible is very clear that that's not the case. But for some reason, the narrative keeps pushing that. And so then when we, hear that people, you were raised in this Christian home and went to this, amazing church and, all these different type of things, we think like, oh, so this type of thing shouldn't have happened to you. Yeah, probably ideally, right? But unfortunately, we're still in this fallen world, and these are results of that. And so yeah, man, I'm sorry that's something that you experienced, but obviously I feel like I don't know, I ain't gonna take it for words in your mouth here, but what I'm hearing and seeing is that God is using your pain for a purpose and things of that nature, and so I obviously gonna learn more about that, I think, but I'm just glad that you're pushing through and that we're even here having this conversation, so.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So with the things that happen in the youth, right, and then you get into a situation that seems like you're saving grace, and then that turns out to be, another crazy situation. Now and then in each situation, these are supposed to be quote unquote believers. Am I right here?
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, where are you today when it comes to biblical belief and things of that nature?
This is what I speak about and write about a lot. And I love this topic because everyone can relate to it in some way. You don't have to have gone through something as extreme as me to sit and go, oh yeah, I feel that, because we've all had church hurt. We've all had so-called believers treat us terribly. And we've all had leaders and pastors that we've experienced that have caused pain. And it's unfortunately because we live in a sinful world. But when I left, I had a lot of time alone because I lived alone. So I ended up having questions, obviously, of like, happened? Like, we'll start
Mhm.
there. What even just happened to me? And that took years to really understand the weight of what was going on.
Mhm.
But fortunately for me, and not everybody has this, but fortunately for me, I did grow up in church and I did have some experiences with Christians that were good. And I had experienced my own encounters with God. So I'm like, okay, God is real. I can say that. There are good Christians out there. I can believe that. But who is God was my question. And then, like, how do you find a good church? Like, how do you live in community
Mm.
with people who are sinful and immature and hurt themselves? So that journey first was, I stayed in church because I just knew, like, okay, that's the right thing to do, right? Like, you always hear people say, never take a break from church. So I was like, well, okay, so I'm going to church.
Mm.
So I did that, but I found myself eye rolling in the pews and not trusting anyone who came near me. And if somebody was like overly excited to be my friend, I just thought, well, this is a red flag.
Mm.
And I found myself being around people all the time, but not really connecting with them because I didn't trust them.
Mm.
So then I did have to pull back, and I took a short break from church just to be like, God, I don't know how to trust again. I don't know how to find the red flags and figure out who's healthy, who's not. Like, and so for me, it did require some alone time away from people, a little bit of isolation, which you do have to be careful, because a lot of times when people isolate themselves from church or God, then they're deconstructing and now they have no belief. But for me, I wanted to believe, like, I wanted to heal. So my goal in that break was just pursuing God.
Mm.
So then I could ease back into church of like, okay, I'm going to go Sunday mornings. That's it. And then it was like, okay, I can go to this Bible study. But it was a constant getting back on my knees and going, God, I like this person, but I don't trust them. So that takes years. Unfortunately, it takes years, but fortunately, there's so much healing that happens in that. So
Mhm.
it's a long answer, but there you go.
No, it's a good answer. I'm glad to hear that, that's where you are mentally, because again, these type of things happen and people just fall off the rails from there. They're like, oh, forget God, forget that whole thing. So I'm glad to hear that wasn't necessarily your journey and everything. I'm curious to know, like, so where was your family in this? Like, because one, I want to give them kudos and shout out. Obviously, they, trained you in the way that you should go, and you knew where to go,
Yeah.
in your moments of weakness and things of that nature to help, prayerfully get you here. And, not just, I'm not saying with me, but what I'm saying, like, in your life, to be able to, now that you're pouring into other people with the things you're doing. But like, how much did they know about like what you were experiencing and things of that nature, and kind of were they there through this process to assist in any ways? Like they it seems like they got some good starter stuff with you, but I'm just wondering, like, where were they in the process of the other things?
So funny, the town that I went to college in is a town that I happen to have long family history in. So I grew up going to this town. I chose the college I attended because my family actually helped build that college.
Wow.
And since the beginning of that university, my family's gone there. A big part of my family is from that area. And my mom attended college with the lead pastor of this cult, who is a female.
Oh.
Yes.
Hmm.
So we already had very interesting dynamics in that sense. So when I started going and my mom found out who this pastor is, she was like, absolutely not. No, no. And my mom would tell me stories about how she used to be both, as a college student, My mom was like, she's crazy. Like, are you joking?
Mm.
And so that was hard. And then when the lead pastor discovered, whose daughter I was, it was kind of this like funny joke of like, oh, okay. And so they were obviously not supportive. However, it's interesting in a cult. Here's one characteristic how when you're in a cult is they don't always tell you cannot be with your family or you can't hang out with so and so. Sometimes they do, but the better way is to make you just not want to be with them and say enough things and plant enough seeds where it's your decision to cut them off. So slowly but surely there was strain on that relationship. And my parents tried so hard to just stay connected to me, and they just took whatever they could. And it's not that I completely stopped talking to them. I would still go home on holidays or whatever, but I was really withdrawn, and there were certain things that were just off topic, and it caused a lot of tension in our relationship. So my parents just prayed and did their best. And when I finally called them to say, I'm out, I'm leaving, they were overjoyed. I mean, they welcomed me with open arms, and not a lot of people have that, unfortunately. So it was very interesting to have parents who even I treated them terribly, and yet they still were like, just come home. But to also have a parent who knew that person, the lead pastor, personally in a different dynamic, that was really interesting as well.
Yeah, that definitely is another side of I mean, I don't know how much are you're author as well?
Yes.
Because I feel like you got some stories, and just that right there is a good like don't get my mind going, because I'm over here like, how can we make this a movie? Like, this is good. We'll talk afterwards. Because I mean, even just because okay, not just a human being, that lady or whatever, but because the enemy does what he do, like how crazy is that? You know what I mean? Can you see how deep that could be? Like, okay, so now I'm going to, okay, and then let me get this one, and then okay, because this family been doing this all these years, so let me sneak in this way. Like, he's that crafty and that like strategic. Matter of fact, I guess we had recently or whatever, we're talking about how he felt like a situation that he was in, that the person was kind of talking to the people that he was pretty much victimizing or whatnot for years before he would pounce, or that type of thing, and that's how it can be, so I don't know, that's a whole nother.
No, I get it. I mean, so I had a friend recently, she's one of my closest friends, who is an ex-member of this cult, and she was just encouraging me recently because we are in right now an active investigation against them. So there's this beautiful movement happening where ex-members are finally coming together and speaking out. And there's just been an enormous amount of healing and restoration going on. But what was really cool for her to say is, there was a chance that we had to go back up to that town for a family event. And I was telling her, I was like, I'm afraid right now because my name is all over the legal stuff. So they know what, it's out there. So I was like, I can't go there. I can't go back to this town. And she was like, do you know who you are? Do you know like your family history? Like, this is your town. And I was like, I don't feel that. And she goes, but do you see the beauty that God gave? And this is a family who is extremely well known, who has deep roots, but so does mine. And she was like, you were the one who kind of started this movement of these people coming together. And you're the one who has the authority here. So you can come to town with authority. That blew my mind. It just made me cry. I was like, of course they never thought of that. So it was just this beautiful irony of God giving back power to say, no, it's okay. You have authority here. And that happened 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that you're walking in this authority and see what the Lord does with it. Obviously, he's already been working, but
Yeah.
I mean, that power of being able to go back, facing those things, those fears, and saying, you know what, no, I'm who God says I am, right? Not whoever these other people, or not even just the people, or whoever the enemy is trying to stop me from being and things of that nature. So I hope you push through, sister. Go on back to the festival, whatever it is, lead the festival. If it ain't one, I don't know what it is. But girl, because you got me over here like thinking Hallmark / Lifetime with this, because I'm like, that's what they do. They go back to the hometowns and then they do something amazing. And
I know. I'm like, dear Jesus, I'm just going to like pray and fast
yeah.
for a long time.
Go ahead, like do whatever preparation you need to do.
Right.
I believe you're going back, and I believe you're gonna go back and do some mighty great things.
Thank
So
you.
I don't know. I'm not, I ain't no prophet liar. I'm just out here to take whatever.
I receive it. It's fine. I receive that.
Yes. And look, come on back when you do. Like, so I went and it was,
And this is what happened. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
yes. So obviously, again, you share with us that you're out there sharing your testimony in a variety of ways. You were saying books, podcasts, things of that nature, speaking and things. So what got you on this path to say, you know what, I can't be silent about this. I got to move forward. I got to speak about this. Because again, I just want to help people, right? Help people that can get these type of things that go through it, and then they stay silent about it, and then they just keep it to themselves, or maybe they're glad they made it through, but at the same time, it's like they're ashamed and things like that. So what got you to that point to saying, you know what, no, I got to talk about this. I got to share this. And I say do what God is leading you to do. So.
Well, I've learned that there's typically two types of people in this situation. And one is they will just be quiet because they don't feel that they have a voice, or they don't know what to say. And then there are people like me who are like, let's raise hell. Like, let's just go after people. However, the problem with that is I, for the longest time, was after revenge. And I had a lot of difficulty separating what is revenge and what is justice. And I remember having like late night debates with my dad multiple times, but with the Bible, going over like what is justice, and because something that does deeply bother me is when people will just say, oh, justice is the Lord's, as if we just sit down and do nothing and hope one day he does something that would bring justice. So I'm like, aren't we supposed to partner with him though? And I wanted to go knock on doors so many times. I wanted to call the police and just go after people. But every time I went to do that, I always had this check in my spirit. And after some therapy, which I highly recommend, I finally got this conviction of, I am making this about me. I feel violated and I want the scales to be balanced. So I'm just going after what would make me feel better. But what I've learned is when there is true justice that God is doing, it's about everybody. And it will impact as many people as it possibly can. And it isn't actually about me. So how this started was, I think I had to go on this journey for a couple of years to learn, partner with God. What's justice? What's revenge? What is even healing? And finally, I did a podcast episode with an ex-member of the cult who's a friend of mine. And we did not mention names, nothing like that. But we talked about what happened to us afterwards and how we kind of had to pick up the pieces and heal. Well, that podcast started circulating around this town. And then another, like 3 years later, after this episode aired, 3 years later, another friend of mine, ex-member of this cult, calls me, your podcast is getting around, or that podcast episode is getting around town. There's a girl who's in the cult right now who's made an outcry. She wants out. She wants to talk to you. Can I give her your phone number? And I'm like, yes. So it started that way. And I just started hearing enough stuff where I'm like, my goodness, I've been out of this cult since 2014. And here we are all these years later. And the abuse is worse than it was in my time. So I finally, we call it the Enough series when we talk about it. I finally was like, this is enough. Something's got to give. And so just in prayer with the Lord, where I'm like, okay, God, what are you doing? Why did this resurface for me? I started talking to a bunch of different ex-members who just suddenly wanted to talk about it. And through those conversations, I realized there's a need for healing here. There's a lot of damage done within the church, unfortunately, and we can be mad about it and bitter, or we can find a way to heal with the Lord and become a part of the solution. So that's kind of what rose up in me to go, wait a second, we have a mess to clean up, church. We can pout about it and be mad, or we can just clean it up and do better. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I get all of that. Like, yeah, we have to again separate the justice from revenge. It does say, "Vengeance is mine," saith the Lord. But you're right in regards to partnering with God on like what He wants you to do, particular. So I'm glad you were able to go through that journey and figure it out and things of that nature. So tell us about the books and the podcast journey. How's that been going?
So the podcast is called the Warriors Community Podcast, and it's very much been trial by fire. It's developed over time, but the big thing that we talk about is healing, disentangling your beliefs versus deconstructing, and sharing just tools and resources for people who might need more extra help or might be seeking more than therapy, maybe inner healing. But we also are doing more of a like documentary type style conversation about the investigation we're in. And that is a paid subscription on the Patreon. So it's the patreon.com/the Warriors Community Podcast. That's where people are able to interact, have conversations with me and each other. That is where we can we play extra episodes, but I also write on medium.com/Liza Lovett. I write all about healing, cults, disentangling, and then I speak. I speak at churches, events, small groups. So oh, you're muted.
My apologies about that. I'm here and I'm listening. I'm so sorry. I'm feeling this is the first time this has ever happened, but I would love for you to keep telling us about your story and your journey. Because I don't want to mess this up. So feel free. Go ahead and
No, that's right. Do you want me to repeat anything?
No. I heard everything. Yeah, you can continue from there. So tell us more about like how's the ministry going and what you're doing now.
So I just started speaking, which is super exciting, but also new to me. So I started speaking because I just thought, you know what, we need more believers to hear the message on church hurt, forgiveness, and healing, especially now that all of these things have come up recently within the church. All of these pastors are being exposed. We've got the TD Jakes issue. We've got the Gateway issue that just surfaced. And there's so many more churches who are being exposed, or leaders within those churches being exposed. And there are a million mixed emotions about that. So I just think, okay, now is a good time, especially with deconstruction being such a hot topic right now, for us as the church body to come together and go, hold on, are we going to be mad and hurt and bitter and offended? Or are we going to understand that God did not hurt us? People did. We're going to partner with God and be a part of the solution.
I'm so sorry about this. I don't know what's going on, but tell the people where we can find, more information about you and just anything you feel led to share about your journey and everything. Please feel free. I don't know if this just feels through the text right now or
That's okay.
So yeah, go ahead. Where we can find you, your books and everything.
Yes. So I have a short story and it's called Whispers of the Lake. It's super easy read and it can be found on Amazon. It's based on my story, but kind of mixed with a few other stories that I've heard through the years. And it just follows a character. It's a fiction short story who came out of an abusive relationship and can't get rid of the memories and the nightmares and just contemplates, okay, should I just end my life? Like what am I even doing in this life? And then she has a God encounter that changes her whole life. So that is on Amazon. And then, like I said, I write on medium.com and I'm working on a website right now. So eventually that'll change. But for now, if you want to read any of my fictional short stories or my blogs, that's all on Medium. And then I'm active on social media. I have an Instagram and a Facebook. I don't do anything else, but I'm very active there. A lot of people have messaged me through social media. I'm on Instagram at Mrs. Liza Lovett. I'm on Facebook just as Liza Lovett. And that's where I usually talk to people, interact with them. And then obviously on the podcast is on the patreon.com/the Warriors Community.
So how is life looking now for you? Tell us, are you married or things of that nature? Like give us the update on how it's looking.
I am married, which I just never thought I would marry the man that I have. When I was in the cult, I had gone through so much abuse. They pretty much said, girls like you with a history like you don't really get to be picky or choosy about men because a lot of the good, godly men don't want someone with a past like mine. And thank God that's not true. I have the most amazing husband. He is a pilot. He flies for a private jet company. And I mean, he's just the greatest gift God's ever given me. So, we travel a whole lot. That's one great thing about marrying a pilot is we get to travel. We're both involved in our church where we are really close to family, and thank God our families get along. So we're pretty much with family most of the time. I would just say, whatever you've been through, God is faithful, God is good, and he wants to heal you. And God is not the one to blame. Unfortunately, there are people who are Christians, are active in ministry, and they are hurt themselves. They're messed up themselves, and they will hurt you. But that's never God's intention. His intention is to heal. So I would just encourage people to try to find a way to forgive, to partner with the Lord, and to just press into him. God is the one who's going to change everything for you.
I really appreciate you for coming and sharing and continuing throughout my little situation here. And I really appreciate it. And like I said, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to our guest, Miss Liza. I want to apologize to both you and her for the way things went with the conversation. Unfortunately, I started to feel under the weather while we were recording, and we had to cut the conversation a little bit short. But I hope that you guys will feel blessed by it. Miss Liza, you're definitely welcome back to come anytime, and we can continue the conversation with you and your amazing testimony. And please go check out her books and the rest of her endeavors. Have a good night.